All right, boys and girls, so now we're going to read the problem below and explore different ways to understand multiplying fractions and mixed numbers. It says Janie has 2 3/4 yards of yellow ribbon. She uses 1/2 of the ribbon to decorate bookmarks for her cousins. How many yards of ribbon did Janie use for the bookmarks? So below, we can use an area model to help you understand the problem. So in this area model, we have 2 large boxes, which represent our whole number, 2. We have 1 whole part, and we have 2 whole boxes. Now, the smaller boxes represent our fractions. Now remember, our denominator always tells us how many rows and columns we must need. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 whole columns. Our numerator tells us how many of those columns must be shaded. So we have 3 as our numerator. So we have 1, 2, 3 of our smaller boxes shaded in. Now our other fraction that we're working with is 1/2. Our denominator tells us how many rows we must have. So our denominator is 2. So as you see, we have 1, 2 rows. Of those 2 rows, our numerator is 1. One of them should be shaded. So as you can see, the purple area is the overlapping region. Because again, when we use area model, we're looking for the overlapping area. So, of our overlapping area, how many of our whole boxes are shaded? We have 2. So that means 1/2 of our whole box, and another half of our whole box makes 1. So we have 1 whole right here shaded. So that 1 whole is a part of our answer. Now we need to see how many of all of our fraction boxes are shaded. So let's count how many fraction boxes we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 of our smaller fraction boxes. Now of those 8, how many are shaded in purple? 1, 2, 3. 3 are shaded in purple. So that means our answer should be 1 3/8. Now let's go ahead and see if we're correct. You can write an equation to help you understand the problem. You can write 2 3/4 as a fraction. 2 3/4 also means 2 plus 3/4. Now let's go ahead and break down how they worked it out right here. If 2 3/4 is the same as 2 plus 3/4, I cannot add unless my fractions are equivalent. So 2 as a whole number is the same as 2 over 1. Now, in order for me to make my fractions equivalent, I need to multiply 2 over 1 by a like fraction to make my denominator the same. So I know I can multiply my 2 over 1 by 4 to make it equivalent. So I know I can multiply 2 over 1 by my like fraction 4 over 4 to make my fraction equivalent to 3/4. So I know that 2 times 4 is 8, and 4 times 1 is 4. Now I can add. So 8 plus 3 is 11, and our denominator stays the same. So I now have 11 over 4, just like they have in our workbook, 11 over 4. Now some of you may think and see, all they did. Now some of you may say, Miss Colville, all they did was change 2 3/4 from a mixed number into an improper fraction, and you are absolutely correct. So remember, when we're in class and I taught you there's an easier way to change a mixed number into an improper fraction. So you take your denominator times your whole number, and that gives you 8. 8 plus 3 is 11, and that will give you 11 over 4. So boys and girls, both methods will give you the same answer. So let's keep going. So now we need to find a fraction of a fraction. 1/2 of 11/4 yards of ribbon. 1/2 of 11/4 means 1/2 times 11/4. So let's work that out right here. So 1/2 times 11/4, we multiply our numerator by our numerator, and that will give us 11. And our denominator times our denominator will give us 8. Again, this is an improper fraction, so we must change it into what? A mixed number. So how many times does 8 go into 11? 1 time. How much do we have left? 3. And our denominator stays the same. Well, look at there. Our answer from our standard algorithm method is the exact same as our area model. So again, 1 3/8 is our answer, and that's exactly what we found using our area model. Go ahead and turn to the next page. So now we will solve the problems from the previous page, comparing the two strategies. So number 9 says, does Janie use more or less than 2 3/4 yards of ribbon for the bookmarks? And explain. So if this entire area represents 2 3/4 yards, our answer is in the purple. Does she use more or less than 2 3/4? Again, this entire space represents 2 3/4. Our purple area is how much she used. So does she use more or less? Write your answer in the space provided. So your constructed response should be, Janie uses less than 2 3/4 yards of ribbon. I know she uses 1/2 of the ribbon she has. Half of 2 3/4 will be less than 2 3/4 yards. Number 10, how many yards of ribbon did Janie use? Explain how you can use the picture to answer the question. Write your answer in the space provided. So we know that Janie used 1 3/8 yards of ribbon. And it says explain how you can use the picture to answer the question. The picture shows us that Janie used 1/2, which is right here, 1/2, plus 1/2, which is right here, 1/8 right here, because this is 1 of our entire eighths, plus another 1/8, plus another 1/8 yards of ribbon. Question 11, how do you know that you should multiply to solve the problem? Go ahead and write your answer in the space below. Your response should say, I know I must multiply to solve my problem because you need to find half of 2 3/4. To find half of something, you can multiply by half. 12, how can you multiply 2 3/4 by 1/2? How can you multiply that? So one method you can multiply 2 3/4 by 1/2, you can find 1/2 of 2 and 1/2 of 3/4. Then add the products. So 13 breaks down how they expect you to work that out with that method. So that means I'm going to multiply 1/2 times 2. So let's work that out now. So if I were to find the product of 1/2 times 2, I know that 2 is the same as 2 over 1. So 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 1 is 2. So 2 over 2 equals 1. So that's my first product. Then it says, what is 1/2 times 3/4? So 1/2 times 3/4. Multiply straight across. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 2 is 8. So now I need to take both of my answers. 1 whole plus 3/8 is the same as 1 3/8. So let's go ahead and fill that in over here in our answer space. So it says, what is 1/2 times 2? It is 1. What is 1/2 times 3/4? We found that it is 3/8. We're going to add the two products. 1 plus 3/8 equals 1 3/8. Is this result the same as your answer to problem 10? Yes, it is. Now suppose Janie had 2 1/4 yards of ribbon and used 1/2 of the ribbon for bookmarks. Explain how you could find how many yards of ribbon she used. So your answer should read, I could multiply 2 by 1/2 and 1/4 by 1/2 and add the products, just like we did here in question 13. Now let's move on. So now you're going to use what you just learned about multiplying fractions and mixed numbers to solve this problem below. Show your work on a separate sheet of paper or on the back of this sheet. It says, Izzy has 3.5 yards of rope. She uses 3/5 of the rope to attach a tire swing to a tree in the yard. How many yards of rope does Izzy use for the tire swing? Now on your own, I want you to work this problem out, as well as the problems on pages 148 through 151, and be prepared to share your answers at our study session. Make sure you have written down all notes and work from from the videos in your packet. Thank you.